Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And today we're talking about Parashat Shlach Lecha. And this is, of course, the famous parasha that talks about the spies, the Meraglim. And there are a lot of questions to be asked. And one of maybe the first question is, when we talk about the Meraglim, who really sent the Meraglim? Because when we look in our parasha, we see that it's written very clearly. Let's look at it at the first psukim of the parsha. It's written very clearly. 1 minute. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, and God talked to Moses and told him, Shlach lecha, send people. Vayaturu et eretz Canaan, and they will go and tour the land of Canaan, the land that I'm giving to the children of Israel. Ish echad, one by one, lemate avotav, to the ancestor, tishlachu kol nasi bahem, all the presidents, the princes. So who is sending them? It's very clearly, if we look at it this way, that God, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe, it's not even Moshe Rabbeinu, it's God himself telling to Moshe Rabbeinu, send people to look and tour the land. Vayishlach otam Moshe, mimidbar Padan, and go, and Moshe Rabbeinu sends them, and again it's written, al pi Hashem, from the word of God. And all of them, kulam, anashim rashei bnei Israel, the top people of Am Yisrael. And the names are being given. How is it that God is sending the Meraglim, and those are the top people, and they come back and talk badly on Eretz Yisrael in a way which is unbelievable? When they come back, one of the, let's say, the worst things that they say is, Eretz ochelet yoshvea. This is a land that eats the people that live there. The Kol Ha'am, and all the people I saw there, all the people are big people, huge. Is this really what they saw? And here we have to understand, we're not talking about simple people. We're talking about the crème de la crème. And this brings us to an unbelievable. It is an understanding that we, unfortunately, are driven by our lust, by our personal desire, even if it's something small that we don't even see from the outside, that it's inside, that makes us see things the way we want them to be and not the way they really are. But before we go into this point, we have to understand, did really God send the Meraglim? And if, why? Why we need people to go into the promised land? The first question. And the second question is, when we look in Sefer Devarim, we will see that people approached Moshe and they wanted to go into Eretz Israel. So how is this all going together? So there are a lot of explanations. But first of all, we have to understand really that if we look from the point of view that God sent the Meraglim, he sent them to two. Why? Why do you send 12? Why don't you send one? What is the idea to send from each tribe the head of the tribe? It's very similar to if somebody, for example, wants to do Aliyah. He comes from, for example, from the States. He's got a nice home. Everything is okay. And he decides, that's the time I have to do Aliyah. I have to go and live in Eretz Israel. And they have a group of people, of families that decide together, we're going to build a new settlement in Eretz Israel, which is a beautiful idea, very nice. And everybody agrees. So what do you think now is going to happen? Are they all going to do Aliyah at once? Or what is very logical, they're going to send the heads of the family to go and tour the land, Eretz Israel, and look for a place where they can have the settlement. What is it, Parnosa? How much does it cost to build? How much is, what if you have a job? And all those things. And then, after they prepare this, they come back and take the families. And that's what happened. They go into Eretz Israel, they come here, In the beginning, they understand that they first of all have to buy flats in town. So they come to Ra'anana or Petah Tikva, all the places here in the center. When they realize the prices, they understand that the villa that they had there in the States, this huge house with a swimming pool with 10 rooms, they can buy here maybe 2 rooms or 3 rooms. Oy vavoy, what should we do? Then they look for parnasa, also not easy. And then also look at the people, how they behave, those Israelis. Oh, they're terrible. How they speak and how they row and how they drive on the road. All this said, Eretz ochelet yoshvea. That is a land that people. And you know, we are joking, but it's not a joke. How many times it was on our mouth to say Eretz ochelet yoshvea. Look at this country, where do we live? Look how the people behave. This is the Meraglim. We have to be very careful. This was the sin of the Meraglim. They came here, and instead of believing God in the highest level, which means God promised Eretz Zavat Chalav, a land of milk and honey, an unbelievable good land. So you dare to criticize this land, even if you think and you see from the outside things that you think are wrong. You are wrong. You don't see the real picture. You don't see the inside of the picture. And how true it is when we judge things from the outside and don't realize what's inside. And here we have to understand that it is, unfortunately, look what's happening today. Look at our politicians. Look at those people that we elected, how they behave. Is this not the Meraglim? Talk badly on each other, talk badly on Eretz Israel. Big sin. Even we are not allowed to talk badly on Eretz Israel. Of course, there are things that we have to fix. A lot of things are wrong. But the land itself, it's Eretz Israel. Yes, we have a job to do. That's why we're here. It's, for example, I think the Magi Midura brings a beautiful mashal. And let's put it in a story of today. Let's say somebody comes. He's a millionaire. He's got a lot of money. He says, I want you to find, he comes to the real estate agent, tells him, I want you to find me a beautiful house. I want 10 rooms. I want a swimming pool. I want this. I've got money. I've got millions. And this is what I want. I want a huge place. So this guy is going around looking. He finds nothing. Like this guy, what he wants doesn't exist. Then he finds a villa in Caesarea, which they have a brow on their inheritance. There, the Yoshim are fighting with each other on their inheritance. Who is going to inherit this and who is going to inherit that? And this fight is going now for 20 years. And this is like a huge house. And it's already through those years, nobody even dealt with it. And it's standing there. And it's exactly what this guy wants. So this guy goes and he tells them, you see, I've got this guy. He's going to pay you double the money. You have to find a way to do peace with each other. Eventually he succeeded. And he comes to this guy, says, I found you a home. Oh, beautiful. Let's go. They go there. Now you have to understand. This place for 20 years was not dealt with. So the swimming pool is without water, dry, and there are weeds growing everywhere. And then also the house from outside doesn't look very good because nobody cleaned it. And the guy looks and he says, where did you bring me? So wait, I'll show you how it look inside, you will understand. He opens the door. Unfortunately, the minute he opened the door, all the bad air that was there for 20 years, nobody touched the place, everything came out, whoop, and the guy almost fainted. Says, you want to kill me? This is a house that you're bringing me? I told you I've got millions and I want a house, a beautiful house, and you bring me a deserted house that is deadly, dangerous? Are you crazy?
What happened?
So the guy tells him, 1 minute, calm down. What's happened to you? This house was shut down for 20 years. Let's open the windows, open the doors from all sides, let the air come in, and then wait for a few minutes, and then let's go in. And really, they waited for a few minutes. after the agent opened all the doors and all the thing, and then you saw the light coming in, and you saw this unbelievable house, and there was everything was covered, so they took the covers off, and it was beautiful furniture, beautiful tiles, unbelievable lamps, everything the best of the best. And the air, when everything was open, was wow. This is exactly the story of Eretz Israel. Eretz Israel was deserted, or let's say, put it in other way, Eretz Israel was waiting for Am Israel to go into Eretz Israel. And who was living there now were corrupted people. The land was in the, let's say, in the worst situation it can. And this is what they saw. Yes, they saw, but they saw the outside. They didn't understand and realize that Eretz Israel works only when Am Israel, and not alone, by the way, with Torah Israel. When Am Israel comes into the land of Israel with the Torah, and it has to be with the Torah, this is something we have to remind everybody. We have to remember that Eretz Israel with Am Israel without Torah is nothing. On the contrary, it's worse than worse can be worse, because you're coming to the court of the God, of the King of all kings, and instead of behaving in the court like you should supposed to behave, you abuse the place. You abuse the holiness of Eretz Israel. That's the worst thing we can do. And this is something that we have to understand. The Meraglim looked and they saw the outside. They didn't realize that Eretz Israel is just waiting for them to come in and go around and see and wait a little, open the door, let the Torah come in, and you will see what a beautiful country you have. God told you this. Unfortunately, we also do these things every day. We look at the outside, we look at what we see in our own eyes. And now, let us understand why these great people couldn't see the insides of the idea of Eretz Israel. Because they were driven by a desire. They were afraid that they are going to lose their position. Reminds you something? They were worried about the chair, about not being anymore in power, about not being anymore the prime minister or the minister or a member of the Knesset. They were afraid on their jobs. It wasn't like from the outside, it was something inside, but if you want something, then what happens is that you see things the way you want them to see. For example, if somebody is diabetic, he's not allowed to eat anything with sugar. So he goes to the conditor, he sees this beautiful cake, and it's written there, Lelo tosefet sukar, no sugar added. Now, what he wants to eat the cake. Now, the meaning of no sugar added means that there is sugar, natural sugar, but there's nothing added on it. But it doesn't mean there is no sugar at all. And here you have to check if you're allowed to eat it or not. But this guy, he wants this cake. So what does he see? He says, no sugar added, he doesn't see. He doesn't see this word. He sees no sugar and he eats the cake. That's exactly what happens with us when we want something and we see what we want to see. And if we don't like what we see, we go around and we try to look at the picture in distorted eyes. It's like this guy who was going to this beautiful museum and looking at all the pictures, and every picture had something to say. This is here, this is scratch, this is good, this is not nice, this is not. So somebody said, I used to, you're looking here at the best pictures, beautiful pictures. How dare you talk like this on the picture? How can't you see the beauty of the picture? Then he realized that this guy's got glasses. And he takes the glasses of this, let me see once, and he sees the glasses are dirty and scratched. And when you look through dirty and scratched glasses, what do you see? A distorted picture. And that was happened. That what happened to the Meraglim. That's what they saw. And the lesson for us is, we have to be aware that God promised us this land, and he promised that this is our land, and it's going to stay our land, and this is a land of milk and honey. But when you do what God wants you to do. In other words, first of all, we have to be very careful when we criticize the land of Israel. You can criticize things that happen, and you should, but not the land itself, not the inside, not the meaning of Eretz Israel. Behavior of those who came here or are sitting here and rallied each other and spread hatred everywhere. This is what it has to hurt us, and we have to fight against it. But the land, it's Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, and we have to remember it. Because this is the sin of the Meraglim, and look what happened to them, and look what happened because of them to Am Yisrael going 40 years in the desert. Do we want 40 years in the desert? Didn't you see what happened? Didn't you understand? For many years, Eretz Israel was deserted from Am Yisrael, and it was like a desert. Deserted from Am Yisrael, and it was like a desert. Nothing grew here. And then, Baruch Hashem, God let us come back to our land, to the Holy Land. And look how it looks. Everything is flourishing. Flowers, trees, greenery, synagogue, yeshivas, Torah everywhere, kosher food everywhere.
Obviously,
The
you're right,
best
yeah.
things in the world we have here. The best technology, the best facilities, all the best. Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash. Also physical and also spiritual. Unfortunately, yes, there is a lot to do. There is a lot to fix. But the land itself, Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, but we have to understand there is a way to make it Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash. And there is only one way. The combination of Am Yisrael, Eretz Israel, and the Torah. Without the Torah, we haven't got anything. Without Eretz Israel, we haven't got anything. And without Am Yisrael, definitely we've got anything. And the basic of everything is Am Yisrael, because we are the one who's supposed to take the Torah and practice it here in Eretz Israel. But in order to do this, we have to remind ourselves that the basic of everything is Ve'ahavta le'reacha kamocha. And take our pride somewhere else. Remember that we are nothing. Everything we've got is from God. And if we think like this, understand it, so we realize that even if we see corruption, we have to look at it in the good eyes. And how do we look at this in the good eyes? So if you look at the end of the parasha, an unbelievable thing happens. We have the mitzvah of tzitzit, and there is written, "Velo taturu achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem asher atem zonim acharehem." You should not go after your eyes and your heart and let the desire capture you and lead you to the wrong place. Lo taturu achrei levavchem. And what was the sin of the Meraglim? Vayaturu. They looked, and they looked for the bad. They looked from their desires. And to fix it is velo taturu. So in our parsha, we have from one side the wrong way, and from the other side, how do we fix the wrong way? And when we talk about the wrong way, and this is something really very hard to do, because unfortunately, when we look around, we see a lot of terrible things, a lot of wrongs, and we can unfortunately come to a conclusion that in idea, Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea, this is a land that eats the people that live here. And here we have to understand what was happening with the Meraglim when they came into Eretz Israel. Why did they say Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea? Why did they say that this land kills the people? Because what happens is God did a miracle. Think about it. 12 people, stranger, walking in a land, and nobody noticed them? 12 people? One, we can understand. In the Haftorah, we have 2 people, 2 spies going in, and they are being captured, almost captured. Everybody knows that there are 2 Meraglim, and there were only 2. So 12? So what did God do? He did a miracle, and they were burying people. There were people dying, and they were occupied with funerals all the time. So they look, instead of understanding that God did a miracle for them, they look it from the other side. Instead of looking the beautiful fruit, they take it also to the other side. It's the way you look at things. And it can happen to everybody. We're talking here about Rashi Bnei Israel, the heads, the top of Am Yisrael. And what's happening today? Unfortunately, all-time election. And people, and now it's very hard. I don't like to talk about politics, and I'm trying to talk about it. But to see people that we elected, that on Sunday they're on the right side, Monday they're on the left side, and Tuesday they're going with our enemies. On Thursday they are in the center. And tell me, and they promised, and they signed things, and they showed everybody, and they talked. And Sunday it was wrong, on Monday it's unbelievable good. You tell me, what's going on here? Is this not the chet of the Meraglim? And what I'm saying is that reading the Parsha of the Meraglim and taking those into our heart to understand, we have to take all our personal desire, our personal will, and adjust it to the will of Am Yisrael, to the general, to the community, to do the good for everybody, not only for ourselves. Because this is the big lesson for us, because, okay, let them do what they want to do. God is up there. He knows how to deal with everything. And whatever happens is for us to improve ourselves. Even when we read the Parsha of the Meraglim, is to teach us a big lesson. Yes, there are a lot of wrongs. One of the members of the Knesset is got a low idea that if anybody is going to try and convince somebody to lay tefillin in the street, is going to go for 6 months in jail. You tell me, is this Eretz Israel?
Yeah.
It's frightening.
But
it's frightening.
I agree.
But at the end of the day, we have to understand, they are distorted. They don't see the real picture. But we should look and see the real picture. We should fix our own being and look at Eretz Israel in good eyes, because there's so many good things happening. Look at all the charity. Look at all the tzedakah, the chesed. Look at all the Torah. There's so much Torah in Eretz Israel that will never, ever, we had so much Torah. So many people learning Torah. If it's the Daf Yomi, simple people. If it's yeshivas. Shiurim. If it's lessons in English, lessons in Hebrew, lessons in French, in all the languages of the world. So many books we have today. It's so easy to learn. We are now sitting learning Zoom on the internet. Who would think about a thing like this 20 years ago, 50 years ago? Who could believe? In other words, from one side, the internet is a bad influence, but nothing bad comes from God. It's the way we look at it and the way we use it. And this is the sin of the Meraglim. The Meraglim looked at things from their own distorted eyes, through a glass that is scratched and dirty. Let us take off the scratched glasses and look with clean, shiny glasses at this beautiful land that we've got from God. This beautiful opportunity that God brought us back to Eretz Israel. Look at all the good things we have here. And maybe, if each one of us is going to show the good side, is going to look at Eretz Israel, even though sometimes from the outside it looks bad, look at the good, look at the inside, and understand that sometimes, in order for us to understand what we should do and what we should fix, God puts in front of us extreme wrong to see this is wrong. To understand and realize that if we leave the Torah, If we're being parve, like not excited enough about the Torah, so then somebody can rack it up and says, no more Torah, no more tefillin in the street, maybe tomorrow, no more synagogues. But this is not going to happen. It is just a catalyzer. It's just something, a trigger to turn us in the right side. And sometimes in order to go in the right side, we have to feel the wrong and see the wrong. And sometimes the wrong has to be extreme. As God said, I'm taking you out of Egypt, which is a bad place, corrupted. And I'm bringing you to the land of Israel. And as Rashi explains, more corrupted even than Egypt. You took us up from an impurity and you put us in and worse impurity, took us out from a bad place, bad influence, corrupted place to a more corrupted place. What's the idea? The idea is that in front of holiness, there is always the other side. And this is to show us we have the power to change. And we are here in this world in order to work. It's not to sit around and lay down and enjoy. This isn't the next world. In this world, Adam le'amal yulad. We have to work. We have to achieve stuff. We have to elevate ourselves. And sometimes in order to do this, we need to see the wrong. And when we see the wrong, we understand how wrong it is. So sometimes, we are so apathic, unfortunately. We are in the years like, okay, so they have this picture, the other pictures. Okay, so our children don't do this and don't do that. Okay, so here in school they don't teach about our tradition, and here they don't do this. And we are going on with life like nothing happened. So then God shows us, look what can happen. Look what's happening if you don't realize that you have to fight, that you have to go in the way of our ancestors. So sometimes God shows us a terrible world. We had the corona. We had disaster in Meron. We had disaster in Bnei Brak. We have missiles flying on us in Israel. We have enemies inside and outside. The whole world goes against us. What does it mean? Everything is from God. What is God trying to tell us? Let's don't do the sin of the Meraglim again. Be aware and be very careful to look with good eyes on Eretz Israel and see the good and not the bad. And when you see the bad, you try and fix it with good eye. Not saying Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea. This is not Eretz Ochelet Yoshvea. This is the land of milk and honey for us to elevate ourselves, to get to the highest level we can. And sometimes we have to see the wrongs. And maybe when we understand this, God will not have to bring all those wrongs to us, and all will look a whole different way. Because, it's our choice. If we choose to do the good, God will show us good. If we choose to go in the wrong way, God is going to show us how bad it can be. So let us change our ways. Each one is a small way to fix those things and go in the right way. And then we'll see that maybe, not even slowly, but quickly, everything is going to change around us. And everything is going to be better because we learned the lesson. All the best.